Welcome to the F&L podcast. My name is Vicky Denton and I'm your host. Our guest today is Mario Majic. Mario is the head of marketing, corporate governance, and strategic business development of a company in Germany called Avista Oil AG. Welcome to F&L podcast, Mario.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, Mario, tell us first about the company and then about yourself. What is Avista?
Avista is a company that is in the heart of circular economy. It's a company that was established a couple of decades ago already. It is collecting used lubricating oils from different sources, and then it recycles, or better to say upcycles, these used lubricating oils into new base oils, and also produces finished lubricants out of these collected used oils, which then became base oils.
So you were saying...
And
yes, go ahead.
And if you want to know something about myself, I'm, as you said, responsible for the marketing, business development, and corporate governance department here at Avista Oil. And I joined the group in 2014, actually.
Thank you, Mario. So you mentioned that Avista has been around for several decades. The company started in the 50s, right? But it wasn't called Avista then. What was the name of the company and why did it change its name to Avista?
Well, the history of the company starts somewhere in the 1950s in Germany. And back then it had several different names from decade to decade. As long as the shareholders came in and get out, they changed the name. The last name before it became Avista Oil was Mineralöl Raffinerie Dollbergen, so MRD as the abbreviation. But it's also important to say that as the company was growing, especially since the 2000s, it also growed anorganically, so it acquired companies who also had their own histories in the countries where they have been working. So, for example, we still have a company which belongs to the Avista Oil AG in the United States, which is called Universal Environmental Services, which is doing the same, so collecting used oil and producing base oil in the refinery.
And you also have a refinery in Denmark. Is that the same history? It was previously an independent company purchased by Avista?
Yes, that's true. So it was an independent company in Denmark, then it was purchased by Avista. Right now, the refinery itself, so the operational part of the business, is a joint venture between Avista Oil AG and a British company called Green Bottle. And the collection part of the Danish business is still under the Avista Oil flag.
So when MRD decided to change its name to Avista, what was the rationale for choosing the name Avista?
I guess it was to have one name that fits to all companies which are part of the group. And it was also, I think the rationale was also to have a name that is pronounceable internationally very easily. So I think Avista is more easy to pronounce than Mineralöl Raffinerie Dollbergen. And it also has something to say. I mean, Avista is made up word, but basically it goes down to the Roman word of vista. It's a view. It is something forward-looking. It is something that we try to achieve in the future, and that's also what it's reflected in the business model itself. So we are very forward-looking because of the fact that we are in the heart of sustainability, and that's the future for us, and that's the future for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, starting this business in the 50s, in those days, we never heard of Group 2 and Group 3, right? So we were mostly talking about re-refined base oil, Group 1, solvent refined. But today, Avista is producing Group 3 base oils from used oil. So what's changed in terms of technology?
Well, if you go back to the 50s, a lot, I would say. I think in the 50s, it was more the case that there was a scarcity of resources in Germany. And people were thinking about what can we do to overcome that scarcity. And that's the reason why they started to collect, use lubricating oils, which were on the market, which were available. And then they started to, yeah, let's call it refine, or let's say process these oils into something that they could use again. But as the technology developed in the 70s and the 80s, and with a final step in the 2000s, we witnessed that making this business model more circular is going to be the most important pillar of the strategy in the future. And as you said, we were producing Group One since our beginning since the beginning of our latest technology upgrade in Dolbergen, so in the German refinery, and also in the Danish refinery. Right now, we have the capabilities to also produce a Group Three, which we are currently starting at our facility in Germany. But for example, the US refinery, which was built 2013, is producing a Group 2 and a Group 3 already. So basically, that's where we already have that upgrade to the Group 2 since the start of the refinery.
Yeah, and of course, Mario, the difference between the US market is the US is predominantly a Group 2 market, and Europe is predominantly a Group 3 market, right? And that's the difference why you're producing Group
I
2.
would say yeah, in the US for sure. The US is definitely the Group 2 market, and we produce a Group 2 with the same technology that we have in the US. For Europe, I think it's more a Group 1 and Group 3 market. So we are also right now producing a Group 1 in Germany and in Denmark, which we can definitely supply to the market demand in Europe. But we see a clear shift towards more demand for Group 3, and that's the reason why we are starting the investment into a Group 3 production in Germany.
Okay. So give us a big picture. How much is total production of Avista worldwide? And then how does it divide into Group 1, 2, and 3?
If I would say the total base oil production from all three refineries is, with all the capacity upgrades that we are currently undergoing, is going to be more than let's see 300,000 tons, 320 if I'm correct, something in that region. And the second question was, what's the percentage of Group 1?
Versus 2 and 3.
Okay. In the US, we're producing predominantly a Group 2, and there we have a capacity of over 120,000 tons Group 2. We have about 80,000 tons of Group 1 currently in Germany, and we are upgrading the refinery in Denmark to 100,000 tons Group 1 as well. But we are in this year, so 2023, we are investing into the upgrade to a Group 3 in Germany, which is going to be ready by the end of 2024, where we will have the ability to produce all base oil output as a Group 3.
What technology are you using? Are you licensing a technology, or are you using your own homegrown technology?
The theory and the philosophy of Avista was always to have own technology, own developed technology, and that's also the case for the upgrade to the Group 3. At this moment in time, I cannot reveal the exact technology, but it's a technology that is being developed in-house.
Okay. Now, really, the difference between 1 and 2 is hydrocracking and hydrotreating. Is that right? I'm not a technical person,
Um,
but that's what I remember.
neither am I. I think that the difference between 1 and 3 is definitely something has something to do with the molecular base. But there are also alternatives in the way how you produce a group 3, and that's the reason why Avista is also investigating the alternative options to produce a group 3 at the facility in Dolbergen. So what I can say is we will not hydrotreat our molecules to produce a group 3.
Now, in the old
The reason
days,
for that is quite
yes,
simple. The reason for
yes,
that
go
is
ahead.
quite simple, I would say. We always tried to be the market leader in the redefining technology. And market leader also means that you have a clear vision of what effects your production have on the environment. With the solvent extraction that we have at the current facilities, we are more or less waste free. So there's no waste produced out of a process, and we are also very energy low. So we are not so energy intense as other companies producing the same output. And if it comes to hydrotreating the molecules, that means you will require a lot of energy to do that, and that's also something that is against the sustainability point of view. And our major focus was to be also the market leader in CO2 savings and sustainability. That's the reason why we said we are going to invest into a technology that also gives us the market leadership in that regard.
So you're very conscious about your carbon footprint. So when with the upgrade, how would your carbon footprint change when you upgrade from group 1 to group 3?
Um, I have no real figures at the moment, but the expectations and the first indications are saying that our carbon footprint is going to be very low as it is with the group 1 production right now. I cannot tell you exact figures because I don't have them at the moment. We are currently investigating that with an external partner to see what effects the new technology is going to have on the carbon footprint. But it's expected to be rather low.
Now, in the old days, Mario, people, the consumers at least, and even the your customers in the oil industry, the lubricant formulators, they kind of think of re-refined oil as a second-class citizen, meaning it's not going to be as good as a virgin base oil. Has that changed?
Mm. If you ask me, I joined in 2014 the oil industry, and when I joined, I got to know people that were continuously saying, no, redefined base oil is a second class base oil because of this and that. I could not believe that, because if I see what we were producing back then, it was high quality base oil. It has, in certain parameters, it's even better than primary refined base oil. And on top of that, it is sustainable, which the others are not. So from the quality perspective, we are definitely overreaching a lot of parameters that are important for being classified as a group 1 base oil.
And now with sustainability and circularity at the top of everyone's minds, primarily to reduce their carbon footprint, suddenly you've become a big star.
Hopefully. I would say that definitely we see a tremendous change. um, I would say during Corona times, during COVID times, so 2020, it started to, there was a real big change in the mindset, also influenced by policies as the European Green Deal and other, I would say, stakeholder requirements that then influence our clients and their ambitions towards more sustainability. That's definitely going to have a positive effect on our business model as well.
So What's the situation in terms of collection in Germany, in Denmark, in the United States? Because collection of used oil is always the critical part. You're basically requiring a lot of feedstock. When you say you have 300,000 tons of production capacity, how much feedstock do you actually need to collect every year?
A lot. Our philosophy also was always to make sure to have enough feedstock. Feedstock is the key requirement for being able to produce, and that's sure. And we have therefore invested a lot in the past, and we are still investing in expanding our collection footprint. And we do that with our own companies and their own trucks, basically. So we have, for example, in Germany, a fleet of 80, 85 drivers all over the country, which collect used oils from various sources. We bring these oils to intermediate storages, and then we ship them to the refinery. But we also rely on third-party supplies. May have several reasons. I mean, it's not always easiest to get access to all parts of the world or the country, and maybe in some regions other collectors have better capabilities to collect. But basically, what we try to do is have a very high level of own collection into the refinery.
So you're from cradle to grave. I mean, you do the collection yourself, although you use third parties also, and then you re-refine and then you sell, but you don't produce formulated lubricants, correct?
We produce formulated lubricants as well.
What is
So we
the
do that.
brand name
We do the
of?
last step as well.
Okay. Um, so in Germany, are there incentives for people to basically return their used oil? What is the situation in Germany that makes for used oil collection perhaps easier than other parts of the world?
The Germany is one of the few examples in the European Union, I would say, that has no tax or subsidized or EPR driven scheme. So it's a completely market driven environment. There are no subsidies, nothing. So that means every collector who is on the market is doing it with own means. There are other examples in the European Union where we have a subsidized scheme for increasing the collection rates, or we have extended producer responsibility schemes in many different countries in order to make sure that the used oil is being collected at a high rate. But for Germany, for example, not.
How much is the collection rate right now for Germany? Like, for example, how much is total lubricant consumption and how much of that is collected now, not only by Avista, but other collectors as well?
I think, and now I don't know the exact figure, but it is a very high collection rate, reaching, I think, 95, 96%. Don't get me, don't name me down on this, but it is above 90% in Germany, definitely.
So that's fantastic. And I assume you're collecting not only automotive uh, used spent lubricants, but also industrial spent
Yes,
lubricants.
yes.
And can they be commingled in the refinery, Mario?
Mm. Um, you can mix certain types of used lubricants when they are according to the categorization of the European waste code. So there are different waste codes that can be mixed, and there are different waste codes that cannot be mixed with each other.
Okay, and you
But
just have to follow that.
yes, yes.
What do you do with the contaminants that basically have to be removed from the finished product? I mean, from the finished base oil. What happens to them?
You mean contaminants that are hazardous, that cannot be processed in the normal way of processing into base oil? like
Well,
PCBs.
I guess there are several. Well, I suppose there are several kinds. One of them would be the spent additives. And then, of
Mhm.
course, water is always a contaminant. So those are two different ones. And I guess the other one would be whatever would be considered hazardous.
Yeah, everything. So what we do is very stringent quality control. What our drivers are doing on every stop that they make to collect the used oil, they take retention samples. Then they take the oil, put it into the truck, and then bring it to the refinery, where we have a laboratory that assesses the quality of the material that's inside. If the material is according to the specifications, it goes into the refinery. If the material is not according to the specification, then we have the retention sample to see what is the source of the contamination, and then we need to figure out what to do with it. So which route is this material is going to take. When it comes to the process itself, we have several process steps in the refinery to take the water out, to take gas oils out, to take other contaminants out. But in order to make sure to produce in the final step a base oil that is reaching the required quality parameters.
Mario, in the EU, what is the specification used for base oil? What defines base oil quality?
Mm. I think the market is referring to the API classification for base oils. That's the standard classification for base oil, also in the European Union.
Okay, and that basically only addresses certain parameters of base oil, like saturates, for example, sulfur.
Yeah,
Uh, but it and I guess viscosity, right? Um,
yeah.
do you use ISO standards or DIN standards or ASTM standards when you're checking for the other properties relating to viscosity? What's the prevalent specifications being used in Europe to determine if base oil, the quality of a re-refined product is the same as a virgin base oil?
Using the same laboratory measurements. So you name them. It's isodine or it's ASTM to, and then make the same measurements as for the primary refined base stock.
So the system doesn't distinguish between a virgin versus a used or versus a base oil from used oil, which in a way actually makes it more stringent for you guys, doesn't it?
At the end, you are at the moment on the same market selling your products, and they need to fulfill certain quality parameters that are valid for all types of base oils, and they have to be met. If you ask me whether this is good or bad, I would say I think there's room for improvement in order to make sure that um, we also include other parameters into the classification of base oil. That's my personal point of view, because I don't believe that we as re-refiners, so I'm talking about the whole industry, we are not selling a global commodity. We are selling a specialized product with a sustainability factor that primary refined products cannot achieve, and that's our major differentiator.
So what parameters would you like to see included? Like, for example, if I came to you and said, Mario, I'm ASTM and I want to improve or expand the parameters that we're measuring right now, what would you like to see?
The most obvious thing would be CO2 footprint, because
Okay.
there we are unbeatable.
How do you measure that though? Is there a measurement right now that's recognized globally?
Hmm. Um, there are a lot of standards globally that address the carbon footprint of products or that do assessments of the life cycle. There is no one standard that everybody is using, but sure, there are standards that are widely recognized. For example, the ISO standards for 14044, 14040, 14067. These are standards. Everybody knows the ISO, everybody knows how that works, and it could be something that is usable for also the classification of the footprints for base oils very easily. And that's what we have also done. We have done a life cycle assessment of our production and process. So from the cradle to the gate, when the product base oil exits our gates. And the results that we found out are incredible. I mean, we can achieve up to 90% CO2 saving compared to primary refined, and that's amazing, I would say.
Yeah, that is amazing. I mean, that could buy you a lot of carbon credits, doesn't it? In terms of pricing, Mario. Okay, so in the technical sphere, you're competing head on, same specs. In terms of pricing, are your products priced less than a virgin base oil?
Would you buy an organic steak at lower prices or at higher prices as a non-organic steak?
Well, usually we pay more for organic products, right?
Yeah, and why should you
At
pay
least
less
20%
for a sustainable
more.
product?
Well, okay. So the answer is, are you charging more for your product than a virgin base oil?
At the moment, I would say the market is in the change at the moment. That's something that I can confirm. I mean, a couple of years ago, we have not been able to achieve premium prices on our product, but we were rather discussing about discounts. But I would say in the last couple of years, the situation is changing. We're definitely not selling a product at discounts. So that's for sure. And I believe, market tendencies are clear. So if the demand for something is rising and the supply is limited, we all know what is going to happen with the pricing.
So Mario, which is better? A refined base oil that came from a spent lubricant, or a renewable base oil that came from something from nature?
Good question. Depending on what kind of source you take, this affects the answer. I would say if you have bio-based input, the question is where this bio-base is coming from. Is it something that is in competition with the food industry? I would say it's probably not that good. If it's causing biodiversity loss, it's probably not that good. So I think it's always a question of perspective which you take. I wouldn't say that bio-based lubricants are bad. I would also not say that they are always better than used lubricating oils from spent lubricants.
Last question, Mario. What do you like about working for this industry?
What I like about working for this industry is the fact that this industry is very interesting for those people who are interested in sustainability. I'm talking about especially the redefining and circular economy industry, because people think about oil as something black, as something dirty, as something that is not sustainable. But I believe that companies like Avista Oil show the exact difference to that. So oil can be green, oil can be clean, and oil can be sustainable, and that's something that is worthwhile mentioning, I would say. And for those who who have a natural interest in sustainability, I think there are options for them to consider oil as sustainable as well. But you have to be sure to look into the right corners to identify those who are really sustainable and those who are not. And I think that although many people have said there is the peak of oil in 2020, 2030, 2050, whenever that is, we cannot forget about the fact that for most of our applications today, we still need some kind of lubrication. And if we have sustainable alternatives for producing that lubrication, such as refined base oil, then we should make use of it.
Well, very well said, Mario. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate your contribution to this conversation, and good luck with your upgrade. And hopefully, we'll hear from you again when it's completed. What is the target date for your plant upgrade in Germany?
We plan to be in full capacity by the end of 2024.
So that's very soon. Good luck with your work, and check back with us in about a year's time. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Vicky. Have a great day too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.